Angela is 47 years old, shift manager, Arizona, 12 years at the same store, 45 hours a week, sometimes 50, never fired, never late on rent. Angela has $380 in savings. Not in her retirement account, in her entire life. $380. Here's the part that stops you cold. Angela has a 401k at work with the company match. She just can't contribute because after rent, groceries, her daughter's community college, and a dental emergency that cost $14,000, there is nothing left. Angela is not lazy. Angela is not irresponsible. Angela is the median American worker, and the U.S. Census Bureau has the data to prove it. The median retirement savings for a working American adult right now officially is $955. I'm saying that again, $955. That is not a crisis coming. That is a crisis already here. In kitchens, bedrooms, and break rooms across this country right now, people are running the same math Angela is running and getting the same terrifying answer. I'm Floxy, and today I'm showing you 3 things most financial channels will never touch. 1, the exact moment in American history when this happened, the specific decision, the specific year, the specific people who made it, and why it was never reversed. 2, the real reasons hardworking Americans like Angela, like you, are behind on retirement. And I promise you, it has nothing to do with your spending habits. 3, what you can actually do about it. Specific steps, real numbers, moves that work even if you're starting from 0. Watch this all the way through. Don't skip. Don't fast forward. The part that changes everything for you might not be the part you expect, and you won't know which part that is until you get there. Subscribe to Floxy Wealth Coach if you're not already here. Now, let's talk about the decision that changed everything. Let me take you back to 1978. Not because history is interesting, because what happened that year is the reason Angela has $380 in savings. It's the reason Robert is 61 years old, staring at $40,000 in his retirement account, doing math that doesn't work. It's the reason millions of Americans who did everything right are still behind, and almost nobody is talking about it. Here's what you need to understand first. Before 1978, if you worked for a company for 20 or 30 years, your employer was legally responsible for your retirement. It was called a defined benefit pension. The name tells you everything. Defined benefit. The amount was guaranteed in advance. Your company hired professional money managers, pooled the risk across thousands of employees, and when you retired, you got a check every month for the rest of your life. You didn't have to understand the stock market. You didn't have to manage allocations. You just showed up, did your job, and the system took care of the rest. That was the deal. In 1975, 1/3 of all retirement arrangements in America were pensions, and those pensions covered 2/3 of all retirement plan participants. The majority of American workers were protected. Then came 1978. Congress passed the Revenue Act of 1978. Buried inside it was a small section, Section 401, subsection K. You know it today as the 401k. On the surface, the 401k sounds like a gift. Tax advantages, employer matching, more options, more freedom, more control. Here's what actually happened. The moment the 401k became available, corporations realized something. Every pension they owed was a liability on their balance sheet, a guaranteed debt, and the 401k gave them a legal, quiet, completely legitimate way to walk away from it. So they did. Not overnight, but steadily, consistently over the next 2 decades, companies froze their pensions, terminated them, and replaced them with 401k plans. By 2005, only 22.7% of all private retirement assets remained in traditional pensions. Think about what that transfer actually meant. In the pension system, professionals managed your money. If you lived to 95, the pension kept paying. The investment decisions were made by people whose entire career was managing retirement assets. In the 401k system, you are the manager. You decide how much to contribute, you decide how to invest, you decide when to rebalance, you absorb every market crash alone, you bear every risk alone. And if you make the wrong decision or no decision at all, there is no safety net. The responsibility didn't just shift, it was dropped onto workers who were never trained to catch it. And here's the number that proves the transfer failed. Less than 10% of 401k participants ever contribute the maximum legal amount. Among workers earning between $40,000 and $60,000, the heart of the American working class, less than 1% max out their contributions. Less than 1%. That's not a motivation problem, that's a system problem. The pension didn't disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because it worked too well for employees, and it cost too much certainty for corporations. So the certainty was transferred from the employer's balance sheet onto your kitchen table. That is the heist. Legal, quiet, and most Americans still don't know it happened. Now you know what happened. The pension disappeared, the 401k arrived, and the responsibility for retirement landed on ordinary workers who were never given a manual. But that shift didn't hurt every generation equally. Some people got out before the floor collapsed, some walked straight into the hole, and some are standing at the edge of it right now and don't even know it yet. Find yourself in these numbers. This is not abstract data. This is your life. Let's start with the generation in the most danger, not the one you'd expect. Most people assume baby boomers are the retirement crisis story. And yes, 46% of boomers have less than $100,000 saved. Real problem. But many boomers caught the tail end of the pension era. Some have Social Security benefits calculated on decades of higher earnings. Some own homes that appreciated dramatically. They have problems, but they have assets in the mix. The generation in the deepest trouble, the one researchers are calling the forgotten generation, is Generation X, born between 1965 and 1980. Listen closely, because this part is about you. Gen X was the first generation to enter the workforce after the widespread elimination of pensions. They didn't catch the tail end of the old system. They walked straight into the new one, the 401k, with no training, no guidance, no safety net. And then, just as they hit their peak earning and saving years, 2008 happened. The financial crisis wiped out years of early accumulation for millions of Gen X workers. The accounts they spent their 30s building were devastated in months. Many never fully recovered. The median retirement savings for Gen X workers aged 50 to 59 right now is $87,000. $87,000. Against a recommended target of 6 to 8 times their annual salary, for someone earning $60,000, that's $360,000 to $480,000. They have $87,000. That is not a minor shortfall. That is a retirement emergency happening in slow motion right now for tens of millions of Americans who are 5 to 15 years from the age they thought they would stop working. Now the generation that surprises everyone, millennials born between 1981 and 1996, are actually doing better than the data would suggest. Not great, but better than Gen X at the same age. Median millennial retirement savings, $38,000. Average, $92,409. But here's why millennials have a fighting chance Gen X never got. Automatic enrollment. When Secure 2.0 mandated automatic enrollment in new 401k plans starting January 2025, it used behavioral economics. It understood that most people don't fail to save because they don't want to. They fail because the default is to do nothing, and doing nothing is always the easiest path. Automatic enrollment flips the default. Instead of opting in to save, you have to opt out, and most people never opt out. That one design change is quietly building retirement security for younger workers in a way that no amount of financial education ever managed. Now the number that keeps pre-retirees awake at night. If you are between 55 and 65 right now, the median retirement savings in your age group is $30,000. $30,000. The estimated minimum target for a comfortable retirement in 2026 is $1.26 million. That's not a gap, that's a canyon. I'm not saying this to create shame. I'm saying it because you cannot navigate with a map that shows the wrong location. And right now, millions of pre-retirees are working from maps that don't show what's actually ahead. And then there's Robert, 61 years old, warehouse manager, 18 years on the job, $54,000 a year, benefits, a 401k, did what most people would call the responsible thing. He has $40,000 saved. 3 years from when he planned to retire, Robert is doing math at the kitchen table that doesn't add up, no matter how many times he runs it. Social Security won't cover his mortgage, his 401k won't last 3 years at the withdrawal rate he needs, and he's too young for Medicare, which means if he stops working before 65, health insurance alone could consume everything he has left. Robert is not a cautionary tale about bad decisions. Robert is what happens when a generation carries a system that was never designed to be carried alone. Here's the pattern across every generation, every age group, every income level. The gap between what Americans have saved and what they actually need isn't closing, it's widening. And the people closest to retirement with the least time to recover are carrying the heaviest shortfall. But here's what I need you to hold on to. The gap is real, and understanding it clearly, honestly, without looking away, is the first act of taking it back. Because the generation most betrayed by this system still has options, and I'm going to show you exactly what those options are before this video is done. First, I need to show you something most financial channels refuse to say out loud. The real reasons you're behind have nothing to do with how disciplined you are, and everything to do with 5 specific forces that were working against you the whole time. If you are behind in retirement savings, and the numbers we just looked at suggest most people watching this are, it is not because you lack discipline. It is not because you chose the wrong priorities. It is not because you spent too much on things you didn't need. Those are the stories told to keep you focused on your behavior instead of the system around you. The truth is harder and more useful. 5 specific forces have been working against your retirement savings quietly, consistently, simultaneously for decades. Until you can name them, you cannot fight them. Let's name them. Force 1. Stagnant wages against a rising world. Here's a number that should stop every working American cold. The real average wage today, adjusted for inflation, has roughly the same purchasing power as it did in 1978, the same year the pension disappeared. Think about what that means practically. Robert earns $54,000 today. In real purchasing power, after accounting for what everything actually costs, he's earning what someone making $38,000 in the mid-1880s. His paycheck went up on paper. His life got more expensive faster than his raise. Here's where it connects directly to retirement. The 401k only works if you have money left over after covering your life. But when wages grow at 3% and rent grows at 8% and healthcare grows at 10% and groceries grow at 6%, there is no money left over. The math closes, and retirement savings is always the first thing cut because it's the only bill without a due date this month. Maria is 34, nurse in Texas, single mother, $28,000 a year. She hasn't saved a single dollar in 8 years, not because she doesn't understand compound interest, because her mother had a stroke and assisted living copays are $1,200 a month. The math closed on Maria a long time ago. Nobody sent her a notice. Force 2, the medical debt ambush. David is 49, long-haul truck driver, 15 years on the road, $72,000 a year, contributing to retirement, doing the work. In 2023, he had a kidney stone, emergency surgery, bill $38,000. Insurance covered $14,000. He owed $24,000. He now pays $720 a month on medical debt at 29% interest. Retirement contributions, 0. One health event. 1. Took a man who was on track and put him years behind. David is not the exception. Medical expenses account for 62% of all bankruptcy cases in America. Over a third of older Americans with medical debt skip prescriptions or decline care in retirement. And healthcare costs are rising at more than twice the rate of Social Security cost of living adjustments. The safety net designed to catch you in retirement is growing slower than the costs it's supposed to cover. Every year, the gap between what Social Security pays and what healthcare costs widens, and the people carrying medical debt into their 50s and 60s are arriving at retirement already depleted before they've withdrawn a single dollar. Force 3. The caregiving trap nobody talks about. Jennifer is 54. Bank teller in Ohio, $44,000 a year, a 22-year-old son still at home. She pays $420 a month toward his college debt, and her 78-year-old mother has dementia, $1,800 a month toward assisted living. That's $2,220, $26,640 a year, 60% of her income. Gone to the generation above her and the generation below her simultaneously. Jennifer contributed 0 to her 401k in 2023, 0 in 2024. Researchers call this the sandwich generation, and she is not alone. Approximately 59% of Americans who serve as caregivers have reduced or completely stopped retirement contributions because of caregiving costs. A 5-year career break for caregiving costs an estimated $346,000 in lost retirement savings when you factor in missed contributions, lost employer matching, and lost compounding. And who carries the caregiving burden most heavily? Women, disproportionately, which is why the retirement gender gap exists and why it's far wider than most people realize. That gets its own section because it deserves more than a footnote. Force 4. The debt trap that compounds in the wrong direction. Compound interest is the most powerful force in personal finance. Every financial educator talks about it as the engine of wealth. Put money in early, let it grow, watch it multiply. But compound interest works in both directions. A $34,000 credit card at 27% interest is compounding against you every month. At that rate, making minimum payments, you will pay more in interest than the original balance, and it will take over a decade to escape. Here's the collision that destroys retirement savings. The average American household carries $104,000 in debt, excluding the mortgage. Credit cards at 19 to 27%, medical debt, student loans, car payments. Every dollar going toward that debt is a dollar not compounding in a retirement account. And every month those debts carry high interest, the retirement gap widens. Not because you stopped saving, because the debt is growing faster than you can save. Tina is 47, restaurant manager in Dallas, $58,000 a year, $34,000 in credit card debt. She pays $890 a month just to service it, 18% of her income. Gone. Before rent, before groceries, before anything. Her 401k contribution? 0. Her company offers a 50% match up to 6%. She is leaving thousands on the table each year, not because she doesn't know the match exists, because the $890 has to go somewhere, and the credit card company sends a bill. Retirement doesn't. Force 5. The access gap nobody measures. Here's the underreported fact in the entire retirement conversation. The single greatest predictor of whether an American worker saves for retirement is not their income, not their education, not their discipline or financial literacy. It's whether they have access to a retirement plan at work. If an employee is automatically enrolled in a workplace plan with payroll deductions, they save. If they're not, the probability of them opening an account on their own and contributing consistently is very low, not because they're irresponsible, because the friction of doing it alone is too high when life is already overwhelming. Right now, only 72% of private industry workers have access to any retirement benefits at all, which means 28% of American workers, tens of millions of people, have nothing. The gap gets worse at small businesses. Over 40% of small employers offer no retirement plan whatsoever. An employee at a firm with fewer than 50 workers has a 38% participation rate. An employee at a firm with 500 or more workers, 76%. Same country, same economy, completely different retirement outcomes based entirely on where you work. Carlos is 42, drives for Uber and DoorDash in Austin, 65 hours a week, $48,000 a year after expenses. No employer, no 401k, no match, no automatic enrollment. He tried to open a Roth IRA in 2024. His income fluctuated so much, $3,200 one month, $7,800 another, that he contributed zero. When the slow month hit, car insurance and gas and repairs consumed everything. Carlos is not failing the system. The system was never built for Carlos. 5 forces: stagnant wages, medical debt, caregiving costs, the debt trap, and the access gap. None of them are your fault. All of them are your problem. And here's what matters most about all 5. It's not that any one of them alone would destroy your retirement. It's that most Americans are facing 2, 3, sometimes all 5 simultaneously, stacking, compounding, closing every gap before it can open. You're not behind because you chose your latte over your future. You're behind because the math stopped working and nobody showed you when it broke. But there's something else hiding in your retirement account that most people never see. Something quietly moving money you've already saved, money you worked for, money you sacrificed for, and moving it somewhere you never approved. I need to show you that before we talk solutions. You've been working, saving, contributing to your 401k every paycheck, watching the balance grow. Slowly sometimes, but grow. You feel like you're doing the right thing, because you are. But right now, without your knowledge, without your approval, without a single notification, a portion of everything you've saved for retirement is being quietly redirected. Every month, every year, for the entire length of your career. Not stolen, not illegal, just taken, in plain sight, in language buried so deep inside documents you were never meant to read that most people go their entire working lives without ever seeing it. 3 invisible killers operating inside your retirement account right now. I'm going to show you exactly what they're costing you in real dollars so you never look at your account the same way again. Invisible Killer 1, the fee you never saw. Patricia is 58, school administrator in Dallas, contributing 6% of her salary to her 401k for 30 years. Company matched 50%. She did everything by the book. Last year, Patricia sat down with a financial planner for the first time. She pulled up her account, expecting the numbers she'd been mentally tracking for years. She thought she had $550,000. She had $363,000. The difference, $187,000, had been quietly consumed by a 1.8% annual fee every single year for 30 years. Disclosed in her plan documents, in a paragraph on page 34 of a document she received when she was 28 years old and starting her first real job. Now I know what you're thinking. 1.8% doesn't sound like much. It sounds like rounding error. Here's what 1.8% actually means compounded over 3 decades. It doesn't just take 1.8% of your money, it takes 1.8% of your growth every year, which means the compounding that should be working for you is partially working against you instead. Quietly, invisibly, year after year. $187,000. Gone from a woman who did everything right. And Patricia is not the exception. The average 401k fee in America ranges from 1% to more than 2% annually. Most workers have never checked what their plan charges. Most don't know where to look. Here's what you do right now, this week, not someday. Log into your 401k account. Find the expense ratio on every fund you're invested in. If you see numbers above 0.5%, you have a fee problem. The best index funds in the world charge 0.03%. Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, there is no reason to pay 1.8% for results a 0.03% fund historically matches or beats. Moving from a 1.8% fee fund to a 0.03% fund on a $200,000 portfolio over 20 years is worth more than $150,000. One login, one switch, $150,000. Invisible Killer 2, the early withdrawal that costs 3 times what you think. This decision happens millions of times a year in America, and almost every single time, the person making it has no idea what it actually costs. Someone hits a financial wall, medical emergency, job loss, debt that became unbearable. They look at their 401k balance, maybe $30,000, maybe $80,000, and they think, that money is mine. I earned it. I need it now. So they withdraw it. Here's what they don't fully understand in that moment. The government takes 10% immediately as an early withdrawal penalty. Then the withdrawal gets added to your taxable income, pushing many people into a higher bracket, and federal taxes take another 22 to 27%. By the time the transaction clears, a $30,000 withdrawal has delivered somewhere between $18,000 and $21,000 in actual cash. You gave up $30,000, you received $19,000. And you lost something that never shows up on the penalty statement, the compounding. That $30,000, left alone in a retirement account growing at 7% for 18 years, would have become $101,000. You didn't lose $30,000, you lost $101,000 for a check that delivered $19,000. Remember David, our truck driver from Section 4? He faced $24,000 in medical debt after his kidney stone surgery. He withdrew $18,000 from his retirement account to pay it down. After penalties and taxes, he received roughly $12,600. He lost the $18,000 immediately. He lost another $63,000 in future compounding. One medical emergency, one withdrawal decision made under pressure, $75,000 gone from his retirement future for $12,600 in cash. This is why the emergency fund is not a nice to have. It is the wall between a temporary financial crisis and a permanent retirement setback. Invisible Killer 3, the match gap that's giving away free money. This one is the most frustrating because it's the most fixable. Your employer's 401k match is the single highest guaranteed return available to any investor on Earth. If your company matches 50% of your contributions up to 6% of your salary and you contribute 6%, you just received a 50% instant return before the money is invested a single day, before the market moves an inch. No hedge fund guarantees a 50% return. No stock, no cryptocurrency, no investment vehicle of any kind delivers a guaranteed 50% return on day one. And right now, approximately 25% of American employees are not capturing their full employer match. 1 in 4 workers, leaving an average of over $1,000 in free money on the table every single year. Jennifer, our bank teller from Section 4, contributes 3% to her 401k. Her company matches 50% up to 6%. She's leaving 3% of free match on the table every paycheck. Over 10 years, at her salary, that uncaptured match plus compounding is worth more than $40,000. $40,000 that she earned, that her employer set aside, that she never collected. Because nobody sat down with Jennifer and explained that the match is not a benefit, it's compensation. It's part of her salary, and every paycheck she doesn't capture it, she's voluntarily handing part of her salary back to her employer. Now, let me show you what all 3 invisible killers cost when they run simultaneously. One worker, 30 years of contributions, paying a 1.8% annual fee instead of 0.03%, one early withdrawal of $25,000 at age 45, contributing 4% instead of 6%, leaving the full match uncaptured. The fee? $142,000, gone. The early withdrawal, $113,000 in lost compounding. The match gap, $58,000 left on the table. Total invisible cost, $313,000 from one retirement account, from a worker who was contributing the whole time, who thought they were doing everything right. This is why the retirement crisis is not just about people who never saved. It's about people who saved and had their savings quietly undermined by forces they never knew to look for. I've shown you the heist, the generational damage, the 5 forces, and now the invisible killers inside the account itself. But there's one more layer, and I cannot skip it, because this crisis did not land the same way for everyone. And if I don't say it out loud with the data to back it up, this conversation is incomplete. The retirement crisis has a face, and it's not the face most financial channels show you. Everything I've shown you so far, the pension heist, the generational damage, the 5 forces, the invisible killers, all of it applies to the broad American workforce. But there are 2 groups for whom every single one of those forces hits harder, lands deeper, compounds longer. I'm not going to dance around this. I'm going to show you the data clearly, because understanding where the deepest damage is the only way to understand the full picture of this crisis. The 2 groups are women and communities of color. Not because of choices, not because of habits, because of structural barriers built into the system long before the pension disappeared, and that the 401k era made significantly worse. The gender retirement gap. Here's the number that stopped me cold. The median retirement account balance for women across all ages in America right now, approximately $47,000. For men, approximately $89,000. Women retire with 47% less than men, nearly half. And then, on top of that, women live an average of 4 years longer than men. Half the money, 4 extra years to make it last. That is not a gap. That is a structural collapse, and it was built from multiple directions simultaneously. Start with the wage gap. In 2026, women earn approximately 82 cents for every dollar men earn. That's an annual difference of $14,300 in median salary. Over a 40-year career, an estimated $1.08 million in lost lifetime earnings. And because 401k contributions are calculated as a percentage of salary, a lower salary means lower contributions. Lower contributions mean lower balances. Lower balances mean lower compounding every year for an entire career. But the wage gap is only part of the story. Women are far more likely to experience career interruptions due to caregiving. Approximately 43% of working women serve or have served as caregivers for relatives, compared to 35% of working men. And those caregiving gaps don't just pause retirement contributions. They replace high earning years with 0 income years inside the Social Security benefit calculation, permanently lowering the monthly benefit a woman receives for the rest of her life. The average annual Social Security benefit for women in 2025, $16,956. For men, $22,716. A 25% difference every month for life. And here is where it ends up. 47% of women aged 65 and older rely entirely on Social Security for their income, not partially, entirely, compared to 28% of men. Nearly half of all older women in America are living on a Social Security check that averages $1,413 a month in a country where the average one-bedroom apartment costs more than that in most cities. This is not a women's issue in the narrow sense. When women arrive at retirement depleted, the financial pressure doesn't disappear. It redistributes onto adult children, onto families, onto the next generation. Now, the racial retirement gap. Now the numbers the mainstream financial conversation almost never puts on screen. The median retirement account balance for Black Americans right now, approximately $20,000. For Hispanic Americans, approximately $6,000. For white non-Hispanic Americans, approximately $80,000. Sit with those three numbers next to each other for a moment. The distance between them is not explained by effort, not by ambition. It is explained by structural barriers that have been documented and confirmed by every major financial institution that has studied them. Three main ones. First, workplace access. Black and Hispanic workers are disproportionately concentrated in lower-wage service, retail, and agricultural sectors, the exact sectors with the lowest rates of employer-sponsored retirement plans. Only 53.6% of Black workers are enrolled in a workplace retirement plan, compared to 67.3% of white workers. Hispanic workers face the widest gap of all, 38% less likely than white workers to have access to a workplace plan at all. Remember Force 5, the access gap? For Black and Hispanic workers, that gap is not a gap, it's a wall. Second, wealth concentration. Black households derive 44% of their total net worth from home equity, Hispanic households 45%, white households only 19%. The wealth Black and Hispanic families have built is overwhelmingly locked inside their homes. It cannot be spent to cover daily living costs in retirement. It cannot be drawn down gradually like a retirement account. It is illiquid, and because it is illiquid, Black and Hispanic retirees are forced to rely on Social Security for at least 90% of their family income at a far higher rate than white retirees. Third, stock market participation. White households hold nearly 30% of their wealth in stock equity. Black households, 4%. 4%. The decades of compounding stock market returns that built the retirement security of the top tier of American savers largely bypassed Black households entirely. Not because of investment choices made in the last 5 years, but because of centuries of policies, redlining, discriminatory lending, exclusion from wealth-building programs that determined who had access to the market and who didn't. And the result shows up in the 2026 retirement data with complete clarity. 65% of Black workers have zero retirement savings. 71% of Hispanic workers have zero retirement savings. More than 2/3 with nothing. Why I'm telling you this? It's not to assign blame. It's not political. It's because the retirement crisis in America cannot be honestly discussed without acknowledging that it did not land equally. And if you are a Black woman or a Hispanic woman navigating the system, you are carrying the weight of the gender gap and the racial gap simultaneously, stacked on top of every other force we've already discussed. Your struggle is not a personal failure. It is a documented, measurable, structural reality, and naming it clearly is the first step towards navigating it strategically. Because here's what the same data also shows. Auto-enrollment closes participation gaps dramatically. Employer matching, when fully captured, narrows the balance gap. Social Security delay strategies work regardless of race or gender. And the moves I'm about to show you were not designed for the top of the income ladder. They were designed for the people who need them most. Which brings me to the part of this conversation I've been building towards since Angela opened this video. Everything so far has been diagnosis. Now it's time for the prescription. Everything we've covered has been the truth about why you're behind. The system shifted, the forces stacked, the invisible killers operated quietly. The gap landed unequally. All of that is real. None of it changes by pretending it isn't there. But diagnosis without prescription is just pain with a label, and I didn't bring you through everything we've covered today just to leave you with a clear picture of a problem and no path forward. 5 moves, specific, actionable, built for real people with real constraints, not for someone who already has $500,000 saved and just needs to optimize. For the Angelas, the Roberts, the Jennifers, the Davids, the people who are behind through no fault of their own and need moves that actually work from where they actually are. Let's go. Move 1. Capture your full employer match this week, not next month. Your employer match is not a benefit, it is compensation. It is part of your salary. And every paycheck you don't capture it, you're handing money back to your employer that was already yours. Real number, real stakes. If you earn $50,000 a year and your employer matches 50% of contributions up to 6% of your salary, the full match is worth $1,500 a year. Your employer's money, into your retirement account, guaranteed, before the market moves a single point. Let that $1,500 sit for 20 years at 7% average annual return. It becomes $5,800 per year of captured match compounded. Over a 20-year career of capturing the full match, that employer contribution alone grows to over $61,000. Free money that was already yours. 25% of American workers are not capturing it. So here is your action. This week, log into your HR portal or your 401k provider, find your contribution rate, find your employer match formula. If you are not contributing at least enough to capture every dollar of that match, change it today. If money is genuinely too tight, I hear that. I've shown you exactly why. But even going from 0% to 3%, just enough to start capturing the match, pays you back immediately and compounds for decades. Start there, just there. That one change alone separates you from the 25%, leaving it on the table. Move 2. Turn on auto escalation and let time do the work. Here's the problem with telling people to save more. Everyone agrees they should, almost nobody does. Not because they're irresponsible, but because increasing your savings rate requires a deliberate decision in a moment when money is already tight, against every immediate financial pressure in your life. Behavioral economists studied this for decades. The solution they found wasn't better financial education, it wasn't more motivation, it was removing the decision entirely. Auto-escalation automatically increases your contribution rate by 1% every year, usually on your plan anniversary or at the start of a new year. You set it once, you forget it, and every year your savings rate quietly increases without you having to fight the psychological battle of choosing to save more. Here's why this matters more than it sounds. A 1% increase on a $50,000 salary is $500 a year. $41.67 a month, $1.39 a day. Most people will never notice $1.39 missing from their paycheck, but over 10 years of auto-escalation combined with compounding, that 1% annual increase stacks into a retirement balance dramatically larger than someone who contributed a flat rate for the same period. Research based on the Save More Tomorrow program shows that workers using automatic contribution increases raise their savings rates from an average of 3.5% to nearly 14% over 4 years, without ever feeling the increase in their monthly budget. You are not going to out-discipline a system designed to make saving hard, but you can out-engineer it. Log in, find the auto-escalation setting, turn it on, set it to 1% per year, walk away. That's it. That is the entire action. Move 3. Find the fee and kill it. We talked about Patricia, $187,000 lost to a 1.8% annual fee over 30 years. I don't want that to be your story. Here's exactly what to do. Log into your 401k account, navigate to your investment options, find the column labeled Expense Ratio. It may also say Annual Fee or Fund Expenses. Look at every fund you're currently invested in. Above 0.5%, you are overpaying. Above 1%, you are significantly overpaying. Above 1.5%, you are losing a substantial portion of your long-term compounding to fees that deliver no additional return. Now, look for the index fund options in your plan. Almost every 401k, even plans with high-fee actively managed funds, also offers at least one low-cost index fund, a total market index fund, an S&P 500 index fund, a target date fund with a reasonable expense ratio. These funds have historically matched or outperformed the majority of actively managed funds over any 15-year period, and they charge 0.03 to 0.20% to do it. Move your contributions into the lowest cost index fund available in your plan. If you're not sure which one, a target date fund set to your approximate retirement year is a single fund solution that automatically adjusts its allocation as you age. Not perfect, but dramatically better than a 1.8% actively managed fund from most workers. One login, one reallocation, potentially 6 figures saved over a career. Move 4. The Social Security decision that could be worth $400,000. This one is for everyone, but it is especially critical for anyone who is behind, because this move costs nothing to execute and delivers one of the highest guaranteed returns available anywhere in personal finance. Here's the decision. You can claim Social Security as early as age 62, or you can wait. Every year you wait past your full retirement age, up to age 70, your monthly benefit increases by 8%. Real dollars. If your full retirement benefit is $2,000 a month, claiming at 62 reduces that to approximately $1,400. Claiming at 70 increases it to approximately $2,480. A permanent difference of $1,080 every single month for the rest of your life. Over a 20-year retirement, the difference between claiming at 62 versus claiming at 70 is approximately $259,000 in additional lifetime income, and that gap widens further when you factor in Social Security's cost of living adjustments, which apply to the higher base amount when you delay. For Robert, 61 years old, $40,000 saved, doing math that doesn't work, the Social Security delay strategy may be the single most powerful move available. It doesn't require a larger paycheck. It doesn't require investment knowledge. It requires one decision: to keep working or find another income source for a few additional years in exchange for a permanently higher monthly income for the rest of your life. Now, not everyone can wait until 70. Health issues, job loss, caregiving demands, these are real constraints that force early claiming for millions of Americans. If you need the income, you need it. But if you have any flexibility at all, if you can work even part-time, if you have any savings bridge, if your health supports it, delaying Social Security is the highest returning financial decision most Americans over 60 can make. Go to SSA.gov right now. Check your estimated benefit at 62, at your full retirement age, and at 70. See the numbers for your specific situation, because most people claim early without ever seeing what waiting would have been worth. Move 5. The Secure 2.0 provisions most people missed. In late 2022, Congress passed the Secure Act 2.0. Buried inside it were provisions that went largely unreported, but that directly benefit the people most behind on retirement savings. 3 you need to know. The Super Catch-Up Contribution. If you are between ages 60 and 63, you are eligible for a Super Catch-Up Contribution to your 401k. The standard catch-up for people over 50 is an additional $7,500 per year above the regular contribution limit. For ages 60 to 63 specifically, that limit increased to $11,250, meaning the total you can contribute in 2025, if you're in that age range, is $34,750. For Robert, for anyone in their early 60s who is behind and has any capacity to increase contributions, this is a government-sanctioned opportunity to accelerate dramatically in the final years before retirement. The student loan match. If you are carrying student loan debt, and millions of working Americans are, Secure 2.0 now allows your employer to make matching contributions to your 401k based on your qualified student loan payments. If you are paying $400 a month towards student loans and cannot afford to also contribute to your 401k, your employer can now count those loan payments as if they were retirement contributions and match them accordingly. You no longer have to choose between paying down debt and capturing your employer match. You can do both simultaneously. Not every employer has implemented this yet, but it is now legal, and it is worth asking your HR department directly. The emergency withdrawal provision. Starting in 2024, Secure 2.0 allows you to withdraw up to $1,000 per year from your retirement account for personal financial emergencies without paying the standard 10% early withdrawal penalty. This is not an invitation to treat your retirement account as a checking account. Every dollar withdrawn still stops compounding. The long-term cost is still real. But for someone facing a genuine emergency with no other options, a medical bill, a car repair that threatens their ability to work, an immediate housing crisis, the penalty-free withdrawal means the difference between a manageable setback and a $3,000 penalty on top of an already devastating situation. Know it exists. Use it only when there's truly no alternative. And if you use it, the provision allows you to repay it within 3 years to restore its tax-advantaged status. 5 moves clean. 1. Capture your full employer match this week, the only guaranteed instant return on earth. 2. Turn on auto-escalation, 1% per year, set it and walk away. 3. Find the fee. Move to the lowest cost index fund in your plan. 4. Go to ssa.gov. Run your Social Security delay numbers, see what waiting is actually worth in your specific situation. 5. Learn the Secure 2.0 provisions built for people exactly where you are. The super catch-up, the student loan match, the emergency withdrawal. None of these require a financial advisor. None require a large income. None require starting over. They require a login, a phone call, a decision, and the willingness to take the first step from exactly where you are right now. Let me take you back to where we started. Angela, 47 years old, shift manager, Arizona. 12 years of showing up, 45 hours a week, sometimes 50. $380 in savings. When I introduced Angela at the beginning of this video, I wonder what you thought. Maybe you felt sorry for her. Maybe you felt a quiet recognition. Maybe you saw someone you know. Maybe, and I think this is true for more people watching this than will ever say it out loud, maybe you saw yourself. Here's what I need you to understand about Angela before this video ends. Angela did not fail the system. The system was never fully built for Angela. The pension that would have protected her disappeared before she entered the workforce. The wages that should have grown with the cost of her life stagnated, while rent and groceries and healthcare climbed without mercy. The 401k that was supposed to replace the pension required financial expertise she was never given and surplus income she never had. The medical emergency that wiped out her savings came without warning and left without apology. The caregiving responsibilities that consumed her budget were invisible to every financial plan she ever tried to follow. Angela did everything a person is supposed to do. The gap between what she was promised and what she received, that gap has a name. It has a history. It has documented causes. And today, for the first time for many of you, it has an explanation. You are not behind because you are weak. You are not behind because you lack discipline. You are not behind because you made foolish choices while smarter people made better ones. You are behind because in 1978, a decision was made that transferred the entire weight of retirement security from institutions built to carry it onto individuals who were never trained to hold it. Because wages flattened while costs climbed, because one medical emergency can erase years of careful saving, because caregiving falls disproportionately on the people already carrying the most, because where you work determines your financial future more than how hard you work. That is not a character flaw. That is a system design. And understanding that, truly understanding it, is not an excuse to do nothing. It is the foundation for doing something real. Because you cannot fix a problem you've been misdiagnosed with. And for too long, too many Americans have been told the diagnosis is laziness when the actual diagnosis is a broken structure. Now you have the real diagnosis and 5 moves that work inside the real structure as it actually exists. Capture the match, turn on auto-escalation, kill the fee, run your Social Security delay numbers, learn the Secure 2.0 provisions built for people exactly where you are. None of those moves require perfection. None require starting over. All of them require beginning from exactly where you stand right now with exactly what you have. The lie nobody challenges. There is a lie that circulates quietly through the retirement conversation in America. It sounds like this: it's too late for me. I hear it in comments, I see it in messages, I feel it underneath the silence of people who stopped checking their retirement accounts because the number was too painful to look at. Here's what the research actually shows. A worker who starts capturing their full employer match at 50 and does nothing else will have tens of thousands of additional dollars at retirement that they would not have had. Real money, real security from one decision made at 50. A worker who delays Social Security claiming from 62 to 67, just 5 years, receives a permanently higher monthly benefit for every single month of the rest of their life. That decision costs nothing, requires no savings, requires no investment knowledge, requires one choice. A worker who moves from a 1.8% fund to a 0.03% fund at 55 with 10 years to retirement still saves tens of thousands in compounding that would have gone to fees. Starting late is not the same as starting too late. The best time to make these moves was 20 years ago. The second best time is before you finish watching this video. Before you go, I need to ask you for something. This channel exists for one reason: to give the people who were never handed a financial education, the Angelas, the Roberts, the Jennifers, the Davids, the information the system never volunteered, to say out loud the things most financial channels either don't know or don't want to say. The only way this channel reaches the people who need it most is if the people who found it share it. So I'm asking you directly. If this video gave you something, a number you didn't know, a name for something you've been feeling, a move you're going to make this week, share it right now before you close this tab. Think about the Angela in your life, the Robert, the Jennifer, the person in your family who was quietly doing the math at the kitchen table at 2 in the morning and coming up with answers that don't work. This video is for them, and the only way it reaches them is through you. Share it. Text it to someone you love. Send it to the group chat. The information in this video, in the right hands, could be worth more to someone's future than anything else they'll see this week. If you haven't subscribed to Floxy Wealth Coach yet, do it now. Every week on this channel, we go deeper into the money system that was never explained to you, the retirement traps, the debt cycles, the wealth strategies that actually work for real people on real incomes. Subscribe, like, share. 3 things that cost you nothing and could change everything for someone who needs this. One more thing. Everything covered in this video, the pension shifts, the generational gaps, the 5 forces, the invisible killers, the inequality data, the 5 moves, this is the surface of a much deeper conversation. I'm building something for you. I'm not ready to say exactly what it is yet, but I'll tell you this. It is a complete, structured, step-by-step resource built specifically for the American worker who is behind on retirement and needs more than a video to work from. Something you can return to, something that walks you through every move we discussed today and goes significantly further, with tools, with frameworks, with the kind of clarity that turns information into action. It's coming, and the people who get access first are the people already in this community. Subscribe now, because when this drops, I want you in the room where it happens. Check the description box. I'll put everything there when it's time. This is how it ends. The retirement system in America was not designed to fail you, but it was redesigned quietly, legally, without announcement, in a way that made your failure much more likely than your success. And for decades, the response to that failure was to tell you it was personal, that it was discipline, that it was choices. Today, you know differently. You know about 1978. You know about the pension that disappeared. You know about the 5 forces. You know about the invisible killers. You know about the gap that landed hardest on the people who could least afford it. And you know about the 5 moves that can still change where this ends for you. The system changed the rules without telling you. Now you know the rules. And knowing the rules, really knowing them, is where every comeback story begins. Angela's story is not finished. Robert's story is not finished. Your story is not finished. Go make the move.